Is Zach Charbonnet one of the most underrated running backs in this year's draft? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Magdziuk. Check her out on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, today we are discussing a very, very interesting running back prospect from UCLA, Zach Charbonnet. What did you think when you turned on the tape?
Let's talk about Zach Charbonnet, won't we? 6 foot, 214 pounds. He's a nice, meaty back. Was super productive out of UCLA. Each of the last 2 seasons, was able to fill in that bell cow role there at UCLA and was super efficient when doing so. Averaged 7 yards per carry.
Not bad.
And let's just talk about the fact that, like, is this one of the most well-rounded prospects not named Bijan Robinson in this class? Because I feel like there's not a ton of hype. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but I think there's a lot to like about his game and about his contact balance, his ability to fight through some of that contact that I think is going to be key at the next level while he's facing some challenging defenses.
So look, here's the thing for me and Charbonnet is this isn't my style of running back. I mean, everybody has a certain type of player that they like to watch and that they kind of gravitate to.
This is very much my style of running back.
Right, it is. I prefer the guys that are maybe a little bit smaller, like in that 205 range, that run 4.3s, low 4.4s, because I want that speed and explosiveness. However, I was kind of blown away when I put on his tape last night. And I spent the better part of this morning trying to find like a good comp for him. Okay, and I'm going to read you the names of well-respected scouts in draft sites in their comps because it's actually kind of funny. A.J. Dillon, DeMarco Murray, Elijah Mitchell, Najee Harris, Chris Ivory, Michael Turner, James Conner, and Joe Mixon. It's like those are some very, very different running backs, but I know.
So who the hell is Zach Charbonnet?
No, I want you to ignore the receiving part for a second because he's not this player as a receiver. But in terms of his running style, got a lot of flashbacks to Le'Veon Bell when he was with the Steelers. That kind, especially after Le'Veon Bell cut a lot of weight, but that over 6 foot, around 220 pounds, kind of patient, dances around a little bit, but has a surprising amount of power. I like him a lot.
I like him a lot too, and it's definitely an interesting comp. I like not necessarily in comparison to Bell as a receiver, though.
No, he's
like
not.
Charbonnet is a decent receiver. He was one of the more productive running backs in the FBS in terms of his receiving production. Ranked 6th in receiving yards, tied for the 7th most receptions. Was efficient.
You're just not putting him out in the slot, right?
Yeah, but he was good in everything he was asked to do. 232 touches for almost 1,700 scrimmage yards, 14 touchdowns.
Yep.
Was just, I think, so solid in everything he was asked to do. You mentioned one knock on him, which I do like. I completely agree. Doesn't have that top end breakaway speed, right? But also he's a big boy, right? Like almost 6'1", 214 pounds. But he ran a 4.53, which isn't bad. Like it's not. That's not detrimental.
And we've seen plenty of running backs get away with 4.58, 4.6 speed. Like a perfect example. And I actually think this isn't a bad comp for him either. Like Josh Jacobs ran like a 4.66, right? James Conner, another not so bad comp, ran like a 4.65, and he's way faster than that. He just doesn't have the top end speed to be like an elite running back prospect. Because, Kate, if he ran a 4.41 at the NFL Combine, I think we're having a totally different conversation about him.
But you know what, Marcus, if that's going to cause him to slide down draft boards, all the better for me.
Yep.
I mean, his 10-yard split ranked in the 70th percentile among running backs. 40-yard dash, even for as maybe disappointing as we want to say that 4.53 is in comparison to some of these elite athletes, still ranks in the 60th percentile for running backs. I think in terms of height, that's going to help him out on the vision board. Weight, I think, helps him out tremendously in terms of his ability to maintain stability through contact. Let's talk about those big hands, nearly 10-inch hands. That's going to help him out as a receiver. Yeah. But like when it came to the tape, like I think his entire athleticism web, his athleticism chart, not at all
it's not a
put
concern.
off.
Yeah.
Like it's not bad enough to have me concerned, because when I watch the tape, I don't like it's not like I'm like, oh my God, the guy looks like he's running through mud. Like he's capable of movement, and he's capable of some really good movement. I think in terms of his actual tape on the field, he's so fun to watch. Like he is I think there's just nothing that I look at him and I'm like, well, he like, he's great in all these categories, but this thing is a huge knock. There's no big knock for him.
You're right, but there's also not necessarily a trump card either, where like, you know what, hey, he's the best in the class at doing this, or he's a home run hitter, or he's so good after the catch, in the receiving game. He's just one of these guys that like B+ every single category. And actually, sometimes if you're B+ in every category, it makes you an elite prospect because you just don't have any holes. Really quickly, before we talk about potential fits, just a couple things I wanted to add. His relative athletic score tested in the 87th percentile. That is more than fine. You look at some of the advanced numbers via PFF, and actually they're incredible. 99th percentile rushing grade over the last 2 seasons, first in college football. 96th percentile at missed tackles forced per attempt. 86th percentile yards after contact per attempt. 98th percentile gap grade. 98th percentile zone grade. Like, in terms of like actually just running the ball, he's fantastic.
He's absolutely fantastic. And Marcus, I think he's probably one of the most like underrated potential. Like this guy could be RB2. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, he's on the smaller side. We know he's I think we know what Jahmyr Gibbs is, but like Zach Charbonnet, I think has a real potential to be the RB2 in this class, depending on landing spot. But
yes,
across the board, he profiles as a true workhorse 3-down back, and that's not easy to find. Now, the trick for him is going to be finding a situation where he can actually get the workload, because I do think if he gets the workload, you could be looking at like a high upside RB2, like legitimate across the board in Dynasty, not just, in this rookie class, but he could be a legitimate upside RB2, but he's got to land somewhere where he's going to be able to carve that role out for himself. And we know that this is a deep RB class, and there's like way too many free bodies available than there are in comparison to jobs.
Well, let's talk about some of those landing spots next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is heating up. We've got the Final Four coming up next weekend, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on anything and everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, Kate, let's talk about landing spots. But first, where do you see him getting drafted? Because I would be shocked if he's a round one pick. It's just not happening. But day two, are you leaning more second, third round?
Yeah, I think he's pretty much a lock for day 2. Not
I'd be shocked.
even a question mark for me. I would be absolutely floored if he fell out of day 2, to be totally honest. Um, there's a lot of interesting teams though where I think he could be um an A+ fit. What is your absolute dream scenario for Zach Charbonnet?
Cincinnati. Uh, I think the status of Joe
Ooh.
Mixon is still up in the air. The Bengals can cut him and save 12 million. They did not bring back Samaje Perine, so maybe you draft Charbonnet, uh, and you release Joe Mixon or you June 1st cut him or whatever you need to do. But I think in that Bengals offense where he can be the 3 down guy, he can run between the tackles, he could be your goal line back. I think he's a perfect fit there.
I think there's a lot of interesting teams, Marcus. Another team that like has been kind of in the rumor mill to potentially be moving on from like their big franchise running back, Minnesota Vikings. They don't have a pick in the second round, but they do pick 87th overall in the third. And there have been rumors that they could be looking to move on from Dalvin Cook. Um, I think Zach Charbonnet gives you plenty of upside. I think he's,
Mhm.
more athletic than Dalvin Cook. I think he gives you a lot of that sort of dual threat ability that you found in,
Mhm.
Dalvin Cook, his ability as a receiver. I would really like that fit there. And I think, if they're at a point, where maybe they're looking to, cut the amount of money they're
Mhm.
spending on the running back position. I think Zach Charbonnet is probably one of the most high upside prospects. My only concern is that he's not going to fall to
No,
87.
no, I don't think so either. I'll give you a couple more. I think Dallas is a really interesting fit. They pick 58 overall in the second round. I could see that being a good fit because you still want Tony Pollard to be your kind of big play guy being used as a receiver. But remember, he's only on a franchise tag. You could let Charbonnet do all the inside running, all the goal line running, and we've even seen from the last couple of years like that role in the Cowboys offense is going to produce fantasy points right away. What do you think about that for a fit?
I love the Dallas Cowboys, and I do think this would be smart. We've talked about the potential that they might take Bijan Robinson. Like, wouldn't be surprised at all in the first round. They pick a 26 in the first round, so not necessarily that ideal spot. I think Bijan's probably going to end up being drafted a bit higher than that. So they
Probably.
would probably have to trade up. But Zach Charbonnet, I think, is like almost a perfect fit for what they want to do in Dallas,
And it's a
which
better
like
value too, right? Like a whole
yep,
round later.
a whole round later. And no, Zach Charbonnet is not the same kind of prospect that Bijan
No,
Robinson is, but like he's he's pretty dang good.
no.
And I do think that pick, like I think his scheme fit is as a true workhorse running back. And this is a team that we know has been more than willing to utilize a workhorse running back in this age of the NFL where there aren't a lot of teams that are doing that anymore. So love that potential. I think that might be his highest upside fit for fantasy, even
Probably.
despite the presence of Tony Pollard there.
Just because we love or because the Cowboys love to run the ball when they get inside the 5-yard line. So I think he has double-digit touchdown potential in Dallas. My fear, Kate, though, is that he's going to go to a team as, a 1A to a 1B situation, or he's just going to go on a team that has a crowded backfield. For example, I'm really nervous about him going to like Chicago at pick 61 or pick 64. And then basically saying, hey, we're going to run you and Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman for a year. And we're going to have this 3-headed monster that we're going to rotate in. Or Denver, who picks at 67 and 68. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, you know what? We've got Javonte Williams. He's coming off an injury. We've got this veteran in Samaje Perine, but we want to run the ball. Charbonnet is just a great value here in the third round. He can come in and produce. That's what I'm worried about.
I share that concern because I do think there are several landing spots like you mentioned, like the Dallas Cowboys. There's a few spots where I think he again is a high upside RB2, but like if he goes pretty much anywhere else, the floor could be pretty low, and that's the case with really any of these running backs. And that's somebody who's saying like Zach Charbonnet is one of my favorite guys in this class. Last fit I want to talk about, and again, this is another like team that's sort of been in on the rumor mill. How do we feel about the Chargers at pick 54? Have been dealing with the trade request from Austin Eckler. They granted him permission to seek a trade. And he has really been the lifeblood of this offense. We know that he's had plenty of opportunities to score touchdowns back-to-back seasons with 18 plus. There's already a willingness to utilize the receiver role clearly in the a running back in the receiving game. Zach Charbonnet could be a guy that again comes in and off the bat, he's hitting double-digit touchdowns. We know this offense can be extremely productive. And I think that if you're looking towards the future without Austin Eckler, I think Zach Charbonnet would be a guy that makes you feel a little bit better about that future without him.
I agree. I think that's another fantastic fit. It's just he's going to be one that we're stressing about a lot because, man, there's so many spots where we would love him. But, man, I could easily see a team top of the third round being like, you know what, we just want to add him to our backfield. We'll put him as a part of a committee. We'll have somebody with a little bit more home run speed. And that just spells danger for fantasy. Let's talk about his current value right now in your dynasty leagues, in your startup leagues, and where he's being ranked on Dynasty League Football next. All right, Kate, let's talk about Zach Charbonnet's current dynasty value. He's being ranked as RB3 in rookie drafts. That's not really a surprise. But what do you think about his overall value in dynasty leagues? Pick 67 overall, RB19.
That, like, on pure potential, Marcus, that feels right. But it feels like it's probably going to be high depending on landing spot. Like, this is a guy that is either going to be probably drafted ahead of that after the NFL draft, once we have a landing spot, or he's going to go so far down draft boards. Like,
can we run through some of the names that are being drafted and ranked around him? Let's go. Let's start with J.K. Dobbins, RB18.
I'll take J.K. Dobbins.
Okay. Derrick Henry, RB17.
Totally dependent, I think, on where you're at. Goals for the franchise. Win now, obviously, Derrick Henry, but in a rebuild, I'll probably go with Charbonnet.
Tony Pollard, RB16.
Tony Pollard.
Ramondre Stevenson, RB15.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Javonte Williams, RB14.
Javonte Williams.
Okay. So those are all the guys going before him. Here's some of the names going after him. Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, Rashad White, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook. I don't know if you're taking any of those guys. Maybe James Cook, but any of those guys over Charbonnet.
I'd take Pierce. I would take Cook.
Dalvin or James?
Dalvin.
Okay.
Not totally sold in on brother James there just yet. Not ready to trust this Bills backfield, but like Zach Charbonnet feels like he could come into a situation much like a Damian Pierce did last year where, yeah, he wasn't drafted overly high, but he steps into a role that like and is capable of playing as a primary, a team's primary running back. And I do think that the thing with Charbonnet is that he's one of these guys that I just feel like with his playing style, he doesn't shy away from contact. Like I do think he's a guy that can wear down an opposing defense over the course of the game, right?
Mhm.
And you don't necessarily do that if you're not getting consistent touches throughout the game. Um, that would be my concern with a guy that, I think has his sort of um, rough and tumble, big bodied nature is that like if he's not getting the touches, like is he going to be as
Yes.
effective in the role that you're going to ask him to be in? That I'm not clear about. Um, so just feels like such a wide range of outcomes. But when you're just looking at the prospect, Marcus, like
He's good.
again, you can't I did not find anything that I was left wanting
Sure.
significantly from Zach Charbonnet that I didn't get on tape, that I didn't get on his
Agree.
measurables, nor did I not get it on the stats. Like across the
Agree.
board, so freaking solid.
What we're hoping for here, first of all, second round draft capital. That would mean a lot, right? Because if he can go to second round, it means that the team views him as an every down guy that can contribute right away. We'd like to see him go to a team that has already a high powered offense that could give him a lot of goal line touches. We've mentioned three of them, right? The Cowboys, the Bengals, the Chargers. Try to avoid any of these situations where there's another running back on a rookie contract because that just fogs things up, right? But if you could go to a team like the Cowboys or the Bengals with running backs on expiring deals, I could see him being an RB1 relatively quickly into his career because look at the running back landscape right now. There's just not that many guys out there that have his ability to play on all three downs and be a goal line runner and get 20 touches a game. So we like Charbonnet and we like the value. Right now it's RB19, RB20, somewhere in that range. That is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Scouting Show with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more, join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Go check out our show on YouTube. We post shows every single day over there. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you guys next time.